We're back now and talking a little bit about China with global investor and capitalist Jim Rogers and Columbia University adjunct professor David Buckner. So we have to be here and say, okay, now what do we do? And that's the message that I think America needs today is, what do we do if this is the case?
Well, the one notice that we don't see, and it goes down to what we do, is there are two pieces that really dictate growth in a country. People, labor, and money, capital. And the one thing that we're not watching is that the money is leaving America. And what I mean by that is you're seeing, I spend most of my time in Asia and in China and other places, is helping American companies that have now placed themselves there with Americans teaching the labor over there how we run our companies.
How do companies that move over to China, because I agree, you cannot manufacture the way things are. You can't start. Somebody told me that Bill Gates could not have started Microsoft today the way he did before, because America is too overregulated and too expensive.
Well, and the point that's being made here is it's not about whether we want to move to Asia or whether Americans want to shift companies there. It's the natural economic forces.
Right.
What we're seeing is that what we inspired in America in the past 100 years is now being inspired in China. And China is now using the very skills that we used to use and wrestling, if you will, away from America, its preeminence in the marketplace.
So what is that? Where does it go? Ahead, Jim. Go ahead.
Glenn, America is now the largest debtor nation in the history of the world. China is the largest creditor nation in the world right now. They have been saving and investing for the future. We have been borrowing and spending. That is success. You know that. I was very impressed with your knowledge of history before.
So again, Jim, let me ask you, the average person, and the average person who's a union member and working, manufacturing cars, the reason why the unions are now becoming global is because the labor force is not, it's not going to happen here in America. You can't continue to do that. So when a union here says, hey, we're going to fix global wages, does that mean they're going to bring China and everybody else's wages up to our level? Or are our wages, must they come down for us to be able to compete at all?
No, our wage. Look, Japan has much higher wage levels than we do. Germany has very high wage levels. They can still compete. Germany's still a net exporter. Japan's still a net exporter.
So
you can do it with high wages.
So then what is the secret? What is keeping people from manufacturing and making things here in America? If it's not wages, what is it?
Well, part of it is the excess costs which Americans have. You mentioned health care before, massive litigation costs we have in the United States. There are many things in the United States which other countries don't have in their expense base, which cost us and makes it more difficult for us to compete. Plus education, which you mentioned before. You know as well as I do, American kids do very badly on tests, on the international test. I don't like saying any of this. I'm an American and pay taxes.
Okay.
But we have to face facts.
Back with global investor and capitalist Jim Rogers and Columbia University adjunct professor David Buckner. Jim, I want to start with you. You have a forum now to talk to the average American person. What do they do? Because they're not global whatever. What do they do?
The average American has got to start with education of their children and grandchildren. I have a daughter who, when she was in the first grade in Singapore, had more homework than I ever had in any year of elementary school. She's doing things in the second grade that I'm having trouble helping her with in her math. I'm going to have to call you, Glenn, and when she's in the fourth or fifth grade, because I can't believe what they're demanding of her. It's very rigorous, it's very demanding, and all these kids are working their heads off. She's in the second grade. China produces something like 20 or 30 times as many engineers every year as we do in America. We don't teach math, we don't teach science, we teach self-esteem. In Singapore, you have to earn your self-esteem. You're not told about self-esteem, you have to earn it.
It used to be called here in America, Jefferson called it a meritocracy. That's what made us different. You had to earn your own way. David, What does the average person do?
The individual has to inspire innovation. And what I mean by that, there's a couple of things you can do on a small level and on a large level. You've got to put yourself in a position where you're inspiring with children, grandchildren, and others to innovate, to create, because we're not going to be manufacturers anymore.
Right.
America won't be there. So you've got to create entrepreneurship, ideas, and innovation. That second step is you've got to make sure that government officials and policies allow for entrepreneurship, that foster entrepreneurship and don't snuff out the entrepreneurship that in fact we will only live by.
Okay. Let me ask you both the same question. I'll start with you, Jim. Do you have faith, because I do, faith in the American people, or if the American people were unleashed, told the truth, and because I think a lot of people are awake now in America, and they're just looking for somebody to tell them the straight truth. If they were told the straight truth, and they were let to solve their own problems, and the government was responsible and lowered the spending dramatically and lowered the bureaucracy of getting stuff done, do you believe we could turn the corner and turn the country around?
Of course we could. We have many advantages. We're a nation of immigrants. Many foreigners come with their brains and their capital, as has been happening in America for over 100 years. We've got a lot of very smart people. But, Glenn, we've got to stop spending all this money in the government. We're running up gigantic debts. You have to change the tax code to encourage saving and investing instead of huge consumption.
Okay.
Nobody ever got rich consuming. You get rich saving and investing.
They will tell you, they're a devil's advocate. They will tell you, Jim, that if we stop spending, then the economy stops, because we are I mean, President Bush said, hey, you want to help the country? Go out and spend. That's a nightmare. But they'll say that if you do that, then the economy will stop, and then we're in real trouble, and we have the Great Depression.
Glenn, it defies comprehension to me that people can say the solution to too much debt and too much consumption is more debt and more consumption. I cannot believe that grown-ups can say something like that and expect people to believe them. This is madness. You have to cut spending like an axe, with an axe, draconianly, and you have to change the tax code to encourage us all to save and invest instead of borrow and spend. It's madness.
What are you doing in 2012? I'm just saying we'd like somebody who spoke this language to run. David, the President Bush said, go out and spend.
I have absolute confidence in two things: hunger and knowledge. If people know that spending without receiving, without innovating, without growing is only debt, and not only that, spending other people's money is even worse debt, I know that that will fail. I also know that with hunger comes innovation. So when we look at these failures, you have to look at the fact that when you allow something to dive because it's naturally failing, it will have hunger, and hunger will innovate. You look at every single recession we've had, and following every deep recession has come the boon, the huge upside, because people that are hungry innovate.
Okay. Tonight was the beginning of education on China, but it should lead you in the E4 solution to entrepreneurship. The only way for America to regain her place in the world is with entrepreneurship and innovation. Foster it in your own family. From New York, good night, America.